if we have one from every section, we could sing along, couldn't we? Our own parts, right?
Goodness gracious,
Theoretically.
people are coming in. Friends, hello everybody and welcome. My name is Darko Butorac. Welcome to our ASO at Home Tuesday night chat with the strings. We'll get started in just a minute. My goodness, everybody is so punctual. Already 50 people on. This is fantastic. 60 people. We're just exploding. How lovely. Thank you for joining us. Last week, if you were here, we had a chance to visit with principals from around the orchestra. This week, we have a smattering of string players from all across the sections. So a bit of housekeeping before we begin. Of course, we can't see you. You can only see us, but you're welcome to ask us questions and we will do our best to respond. You do that by going on your screen. If you touch your mouse, there will be buttons at the bottom of the screen. There's a Q&A button at the bottom right. So you can press that, and if you're interested in something about the strings or anything about the Asheville Symphony, feel free to drop us a line and I'll try to work it into our conversation this week. So without further ado, here are my good friends from the strict section, and we'll start with the ladies. I'll have you introduce yourself, tell us what instruments you play, and what you do outside of the Asheville Symphony. So I'll start with Dorothy. Dorothy, go ahead.
I am Dorothy Knowles. I am in the second violin section. I have played in the symphony for maybe 16 or 15 years, in that range somewhere. And in my other time, I am the admin assistant at Brevard College for the Fine Arts Division. And I teach Bella Kozaros private lessons.
Awesome. Well, Jenny, why don't you take over from there then?
Hey, hello everybody. I'm Jenny Kozaros. Big fan of Dorothy Knowles, who teaches my daughter viola. But also I'm a violist, otherwise known as the enhanced violin. And and sorry, I had to put it in. I actually brought my viola t-shirt as well, just so everyone knows how it's spelled. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. No. But I think I've been with the orchestra for 3 months before COVID hit, I think. So it's been new. And currently I'm the program director with the Brevard Music Center. And prior to that, I was with the Milwaukee Symphony. So went from the frozen tundra of Milwaukee, Wisconsin to beautiful Brevard. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we love having you in the orchestra, and it is true. It's kind of, we've cut our season short a little bit this year, but we look forward to resuming as soon as we can.
Absolutely.
I love also the fact that everybody else on the call who is not a violist kind of smirked at that remark. And I think we can have an entire chapter introducing our fans to the world of viola jokes and why that exists. So we're putting a bookmark on that, and we'll get back to that. Let's go on with Maria. Tell us about you. Tell us what you do.
Hi, I'm Maria Potapova. My name is misspelled in the box there. And actually, Franklin's name is also Maria Potapova because he used my link. He lost kids. So, I play the violin.
You can change his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Franklin, this is just confusing. You have to
change yours to Franklin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, there are two of me. The other one does not play the violin. So, I mean, I haven't been playing very much lately with the quarantine, but it gave me a chance to get my other passion started, which is life coaching. I started my life coaching practice, and I'm getting more clients, and I'm working. This is like my to-do list for tomorrow of all the things I have to do for my business. So yeah, it's exciting. I've been with the symphony for 13, 14 years. God, I don't know, maybe more. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Great to have you, Franklin. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll give you a moment to get situated. So
I'm situated.
I'm going to go to the low end of the section first with Matt, who plays bass. Matt, welcome.
Hi, yes, I'm Matt Wade, bass player in the section. Similar to Jenny, I joined pretty recently, last September. Won the audition. That was awesome. But I'm also a massage therapist and have been doing that mostly since quarantine. But I also teach at Converse College, and you know, try to massage as much as possible right now. But we'll be picking up more gigs, I'm sure, as quarantine continues. But as of right now, that's my main focus right now. Also, can't really see it because I was leaning down on purpose, but my wife's expecting, so we're pregnant, but mostly her. So wanted to announce that in case anyone was wondering what's my shirt saying. So.
Well, welcome, and now to round things off, Franklin Keel, hiding under Maria's avatar. Welcome, Franklin.
Hi, my name's Franklin Keel, and I've been with the Asheville Symphony since 1998. I started playing as a senior in high school, and I went to the Eastman School of Music, and then came back here and have been playing here ever since. I have been, mostly just been quarantining at home and, doing recording sessions here and there, teaching my private students online. I teach at Brevard College, and just hanging out with my little guy who turned 10 this year, and he's rocking the virtual school, and we're just sort of hanging out and having a good time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. We have a full string quintet here around me. Now, one of the, before we turned live, we were remarking, shouldn't we be having our first concert of the season this weekend or so? Approximately, I think it was maybe a week ago. But September is usually a time when things get started. We get to see each other for the first time after having a summer off. People are catching up. People have gone to festivals or do different projects in the summer. It's always nice to come back together as an orchestra and as a string section to work. Sadly, not able to yet this year, but we look forward to returning to the stage in the spring and can't wait for that. I asked this question last week to our other panelists, but I'm just curious, have any of you had a chance to perform in, let's say, a larger ensemble? Of course, like string quartets, duos, trios, it's easy to socially distance, but have any of you had opportunities at all to perform since the whole thing started? Maria did.
I did, actually last weekend, the Spartanburg Philharmonic we recorded 2 concerts in 3 days.
Wow.
Yep, they recorded one of the Masterworks and the Christmas Pops concert, and they are gonna stream, or they're gonna, put out the recording when it's time for the concert. There was no audience, obviously, but it was an interesting experience. With everybody had to wear masks 6 feet apart, but
were there woodwinds and brass players as well, or just strings?
Yep.
Woodwinds and brass as well.
Yep.
How were their masks doing?
They had to take them off. They were the lucky ones.
Franklin, were you part of the same project, or did you do something else?
No, I did something different. I played with Vance on bass, and it was outside. It was a Creekside concert. Some folks from Brevard, some folks from Asheville, and a couple folks from Knoxville all participated. It was organized by Steve Lowe, who's a clarinetist, and conducted by James Fallenbaum. And they also did a Mozart Wind Symphony, or Wind Serenade or something like that. And it was a blast.
Yeah, were Jeffrey and Alicia part of that, our principal horn and principal oboist?
Yes, they were.
Being part of the Grand Partita last week. Yeah, that's neat. Maria, back to you. Is it weird playing for an empty hall?
Yeah, it's also weird playing in a mask, especially when you're playing a violin, because the mask goes that way and this way and like every it's ridiculous. And just the whole experience, the way it sounds with no one there. And yeah, it was weird.
This is for our guests, you know, our attendees here at on the ASO at Home. It makes such a huge difference having an audience to respond to in performance. And especially for us as string players, I'm also a string player, I'm a former cellist. It really is an element, you feel the connection with the audience, almost, you know, the cellos and the violins sit right next to the audience. You're right there, you see people react directly to what you're doing. And it is a little disconcerting to have a concert where, you know, you don't have the feedback. It's really hard. I found I mentioned last week, I had a recording project, and it's really hard without the feedback loop to have the energy that we have at a concert when there's no audience there. But okay, I don't want to dwell too much on Corona music making. It is what it is. We're grateful to have any opportunities we have as musicians, of course.
I think it feels very naked and sterile, you know, like just being there on the stage, kind of, alone. No.
Yeah, the South Carolina Philharmonic had a similar.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, the South Carolina Philharmonic had a similar concert, their last one, right before COVID happened, as it was happening mid-March. There was just your sound goes out and comes back a lot faster without the audience there. So it was a weird and a disconnect when a concert, you can feel the energy of the audience. And I'll never forget that emptiness because there was no give and take. It was like having a conversation with the wall. It didn't feel as connected as it could have. But listening back to the recording, it did feel like the recording went well. But in the moment, it was like, I wonder how that went. I don't know. It was interesting.
You really feel an energy from the audience. It really is a back and forth. You said you heard the sound come back from the hall, so obviously we're not playing in Thomas Wolfe.
Nope. Nope.
Sorry.
Where's the percussion when you
love Asheville, but our hall is a little bit of a So I want to talk a little bit about string playing, because, you know, for most of our guests, they're not musicians. I want to go around the entire room, and first question I want to ask you is, what is it like for you playing in the orchestra in normal times, in the position you're at? What does it feel like? I mean, in terms of being part of the ensemble, being part of the section, listening across the orchestra. Let's go around and talk a little bit. I'll start with Dorothy.
As a second violinist now, and I've played in first violin sections also, but I really enjoy sometimes being able to be with the violas and do all the juicy interplay, and other times it's nice to be able to support the first violins. So, but I like being able to hear all of it more than sitting in the first violins.
So just to offer more perspective for people, the 5-string instruments almost act like let's say in a choral manner, that the first violins generally take the top voice. The second violins will either be playing with the first violins, often at same pitch, they could be in harmony or at octave, or will actually function with the violas as an inner voice, oftentimes kind of the churning mechanism inside. It's where the pulse is taking place. As you go further down, this is why viola jokes exist, because violas are always in the middle.
Sorry,
hardly
Jenny.
ever get to play the tune, hardly shine on top, or never get the bottom. It's always like this unusual meld. But I'll come back to this, but it really is kind of a very fun section, is it not, Jenny?
It's a great section. Come on.
Let's have more fun.
Are you kidding? We're the best.
I'm coming right back to you further on this. And just to finish off, the cellos and the basses, of course, are the low end of the section. The cellos do get featured, especially from 19th century music on, more as melodic instrument taking kind of a tenor role, what a tenor would sing in opera, but of course always having a bass function as well. So a very versatile thing. But let's go back to the violist. Why is it fun being a violist? What is that like?
Well, oh boy, where do I begin? Uh, no, the viola is, you know, I chose the viola. I didn't start on the violin. I'm one of the rare ones, I guess, but because the viola it's most similar to the human voice. Now, some people think that the cello is a little bit more closer to the human voice. But you know, ours it's a mellow instrument. It's a supportive instrument. And sometimes it has a rich, dark quality that can, you know, make you melt or can send shivers up your spine too. You know, well, I guess it depends on who's, yeah, anyways. But it's a beautiful instrument. It is, you know, it's held the same. It's just a little bit further out. It has some chutzpah when you need it, and I think violists tend to be the kind that like to let our team players, you know, we have no choice because a lot of times first violinists tend to linger sometimes, or, you know, enjoy their melody, and then the cellist might have the melody, and so we have to be ready for anything, you know.
That's true. This brings up a neat point. Just generally how orchestras work is when the ensemble is playing, your ear is latching on to certain qualities in the orchestra. It could be an instrument, something that's penetrating, for example, like a trumpet, or something very rhythmic, like a timpani. But in the string section, because our colors are fairly similar, the most easy thing to latch onto is either bass line or the melody, which generally is up top. And again, as you say, violas rarely get to have the opportunity to take charge. As a result, they are very good team players because they're actually the supporters.
Sure.
And one of the things that, from a conductor's perspective, I love coming to an orchestra that has a large viola section because it feels like you finally have a high quality stereo. And your mid-level exists. Yeah. Instead of being like this.
Yeah. You know when the viola is missing. You know when it's missing. There's something missing.
Yes. It's that background spice that you don't quite know.
Yes.
It's the umami. It's the umami. That's what it is. Yes. Yes. I saw Maria rolling her eyes a couple of comments. Let's go to the first silent perspective. What is it like, Maria? You often sit third chair, so you're directly behind the concertmaster. What's that like for you? And you're also on the outside. You're right next to the audience.
Well, the being on the outside feels a little bit exposed, but being up front also makes you feel more of the part of the chamber playing, which is really cool. I think in general, playing in first violins, most first violins are a bit uptight because of all the high stuff that we have to play and all the like difficult that are so exposed. Yeah. I like to think of myself as a violinist with a violist personality because I actually prefer the lower strings a lot better. I do not like that squeaky E string stuff. So, but it's like a challenge, you know, it's fun, and it's, you know, and we do get a lot of beautiful things to play. So, yeah.
You bring up a nice little thing that actually, this is true across all sections of the orchestra. You really can generalize in terms of personalities that are related to your function at work, which is, in case of first violinists, it is incredibly exposed. It's the most exposed string instrument. It's the highest pitch. Because the string length is shorter, the room for error is tiny. You know, you twist the finger like this, you're up a minor third. I mean, it really is.
And the conductor hears it all because you're way up there.
Right. But I like that you bring up the element. So if let's say you're a guest violinist in the orchestra, is it easier to play up front or is it easier to play in the back?
Ooh. That's that could be many answers to this question. I think it depends on the orchestra.
Sure.
It depends on how well the upfront gel together. Also could be different on concert by concert, depending on the music, you know, like some principals like to interpret some things differently than others. And it makes it very difficult for the people in the back of the section, because they can hear more of the orchestra rather than just those front stands. They hear everything else that's going on, and there's a disconnect, you know.
really have to
Yeah.
to keep connected.
Yeah. Or you see one thing and you hear another thing and you're all confused, you know, that also happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then again, if everything is gelling up front and they're with it, then it's pleasure, you know, you're just like merging into this like organism that functions. So.
I have to say, again, for me, in this new style of music making, even if it's chamber music, like a quartet that has to be socially distanced, it's incredible how much we've taken the element of physical closeness in an ensemble in actually making great music. Because you mentioned this chamber music quality that exists in the as you get close to the podium, because musicians are closer. It really is that when things are gelling, it's not just even listening, it's really feeling other human beings around you. And you sway, you move together in a certain way. And, you know, as a conductor, I don't spoon feed rhythm and pulse to the orchestra. That's not a good use of my time. So oftentimes it's about feeling connected to that wave that originates. You know, the strings are the closest thing to the podium, is the thing you hear best, the thing you feel most connected to. And you ride that wave kind of as a full orchestra. And it really is, I just lament, we've taken it a little bit for granted. I can't wait till we rediscover that. Franklin, you got such a great picture. What?
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to you. Let's go to the cello side. What is it? Tell our guests what it's like to be a cellist in the orchestra. What does that entail? You play associate principal, you're in the second chair, and oftentimes you actually are principal as well for the section. What is that like? What are those different roles like?
Well, it's really awesome for me to be right in the middle of the action. I really like just sort of, I feel like, you know, when I used to play and move around in the cello section, particularly towards the back, I feel like the people in the back, they can't really hear much of what's going on. They can hear what's going on in the section, but not nearly as well. The people in the front are hearing everyone behind them. And so I feel like I'm sitting in a place where I can hear pretty much what everybody's doing. And that's a really fun place to be for me. Yeah. Being a cellist and the role in the cello, it's all over the place. A lot of times we are, you know, with the basses and holding down the bass line, which gives me a good sense of what the composer's sort of vision is for that particular section, because everything just sort of grows out of the bass. So like a lot of the foundational things that are happening in the musical work are right there for us to sort of experience and think about. Other times we are, you know, harmonizing and filling in a role for the violas while they're playing a melody, or we're with the violas and providing some of the inner padding, or we have this really awesome melody. Composers are really good at giving cellos special melodies, so there's always something to do. But a really big thing that my favorite thing about playing is in the symphony is the whole experience just kind of feels like one big kind of party, because this is like the one time where everybody gets together, you know, like we're all like out doing our own thing, and then 1 week a month we all get together and we all get to see each other and really play some incredible music, and that's just awesome to me.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. I'll come back to favorite pieces at some point, but one of my favorite moments as a cellist, it happens a few times in Brahms symphonies when the viola sits under the cello. So the cello takes the top top note of the melody and the viola is in harmony underneath. The first movement of the second symphony is what pops into my mind immediately. But,
Yeah.
it is it's a beautiful little symbiosis. It happens, once in a while in the orchestra. And it's very, very rewarding. You feel very rich. It's this element of teamwork we talked earlier with Jenny about. Matt, you're all the way at the bottom, down in the depths, an octave removed from everybody else with this giant instrument. What is it like playing in a bass section?
Well, we have a unique perspective, kind of feeling like we're at the back of all the sections, especially being behind the cellos and violas. In fact, I feel like sitting principal is more challenging because you're kind of in front of the sound and also behind everybody. So it can be challenging. I prefer a lot of times to sit in the back of the section. It's closer to the winds. Even if I have to tough it out with the trumpets or trombones right behind you, or tuba literally right in your ear, I'd rather that than kind of be removed from it and also connect to your principal player, especially I feel like the last sections, if they're connecting to the front, and as a bass player, we're higher up so we can see better too. But in general, I feel like that helps the cohesiveness of the whole orchestra if all of us are playing exactly together and making our sound a foundation for everybody else, pitch and rhythm, and also trying to connect to the other lower instruments in the orchestra, like even bass clarinet on the other side of the stage playing a similar octave. So sometimes I'll key into that. Like I noticed, like my wife plays second bassoon in Greenville Symphony, and when she started playing there, I was like, I could really match. Like, I really enjoy your playing. Like I had like a really unique compliment for that instrument, because I really do pay attention to what their trombone's doing and tuba and timpani a lot of times. But if we're not together, if we're out of tune a little bit and it's just not, the pitches aren't vibrating together exactly right, then nobody else has a shot. So I take that as a really big responsibility for the orchestra. Even if there are 4 or 5 of us, I know some orchestras can have larger sections of 8 to 9 or so, 7. But if 4 or 5 people are playing really well in tune, it does help a lot. It carries a lot more weight than 6 people or 7 people and one person's not exactly right.
Yeah, you bring up a beautiful point for our listeners. This is an acoustic phenomenon. If you have a group of players, you said 4 or 5 players, if they're all matching pitch in really like kind of hitting it right in the center, the sympathetic vibration actually makes it louder than 4 or 5 players. It's heard better across the orchestra, it's heard better in the room. So if you imagine just like a wave, right? If they're all together, you create basically a standing wave and it amplifies, the amplification grows. But if they're slightly off, they're actually kind of working against each other. So when a small number of players locks in, it's an incredibly powerful sound. And it's most obviously heard like if you're listening in the orchestra, it's easy to hear, for example, in the brass, if you have, say, 3 trombones playing together or brass section. But the bass is the most important thing. If the orchestra sounds a little off, oftentimes, and you can't hear why, there's something going on at the bottom that isn't quite clicking, and people don't have a foundation upon which to play against. It's very, very difficult. Awesome. Well, great. I love that. Please join in, Maria. Yes.
About the bass section, when the bass section is awesome and they're playing together and they're like on it, it is such a beautifully satisfying thing for everybody else. Like even sitting in the back of first violins, which would be like directly on the other side of the stage from the basses, it's like, yay, this is everybody all of a sudden play together, So yeah.
Good point. Other sections can get away with intonation murder, somewhat, but bass really can't. It really affects. I'm going to jump to a couple of questions. We're getting some great questions from the audience this week. Thank you, everybody, and feel free to jump in. I have a nice little comment from Vicky Richards. She says the first violinists seem to play many more notes during a symphony. They don't get much rest. Do they get paid by the note?
I wish.
Yes. Anytime I hear, like a brass player complain about something in the orchestra, I just show him the first violin part, and usually it calms things down. Let's see, what else? Russ Spiller asks, Darko, have you found that your out of shape practices related to conducting? Great question, Russ. In fact, yes, I had my first concert of the season, a virtual affair in Tallahassee 3 weeks ago. And at the end of the week, I had the largest knot behind my shoulder blades that took a while to get out. I wish Nat was nearby to help out, but I traveled with one of those little green spiky balls, and so I go against the wall and push it out. But it is a valid question. For those of you who may have been around the Brevard Music Center, Nurse Rhonda, do I remember correctly? Nurse Rhonda. I mean,
Nurse Rhonda.
She was a legend, and she always said, musicians are like athletes of small muscles, and it really is. When you don't perform, or if you don't take care of your body, you really can have severe adverse effects. And so in my case, it was manifested as shoulder tension. But
she honestly, by the way, she honestly was my inspiration for being a massage therapist.
Wow.
She worked on me, and she taught me a lot of things like just general hand positions and techniques, because I was asking questions as an 8th grader, and she was like, here's some answers, so here you go. And I just got my hands on people in college and high school, just like, hey, that hurt? Let me see if I can help. So I really credit that a lot to her, and I was actually able to tell her in person, and she was like, you're the second person who's told me that. She was really touched. So yeah, she was great. I mean, answered all my questions really directly and honestly, and treated me as if I was an adult. She didn't look at me as like, well, you won't know whenever. She really did take time, and I never will forget that.
That's beautiful.
She held that place together.
I'm still rocking 8 glasses of water since 2000 because of Nurse Rhonda. So
Yeah.
You really can influence people. It's kind of amazing. Let's see what else we have. Oh, here's a cool question from Vicky Richards. Do the string sections rotate chairs during a season or keep the same desk partner and seat? The principal chairs at the front of the sections generally stay the same. Now, our orchestra rotates people around, but of course we have also turnover because a lot of our musicians play in different ensembles, and sometimes they miss concerts. So we have quite a bit of musical chairs going around. And I don't know, I remember when I played in orchestra, it was kind of an enjoyable thing just to mix things up. I don't know how you guys feel. Any particular insight on that, on rotation in the string sections?
I think it's fun to, experience new stand partners.
I stopped rotating.
Oh.
Franklin stopped rotating.
Yeah,
and
I stopped rotating a few years ago, and I miss playing with other people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I miss playing with different stand partners. That is something that I miss.
How I've gotten to know more people in the violin section too is being their stand partners, like Maria, way back when, right?
Yeah, we used to ask to be put together because we like sitting together so much.
Yeah, that's the flip side of rotation in string sections, is that sometimes you don't really click with the person next to you, and when you do click with somebody, it's like the whole experience is just like sunshine.
Yes.
You really get to have a wonderful time. All right, let's see. There was one more I wanted to ask. There was a great question regarding where is it? Young kids, but I don't know if it was answered.
Oh yeah.
I am missing it. Okay, somebody asked about, like, if you have children, Matt's about to have a kid. How do you approach music in your household with young kids? Do you expose them to all kinds of music? Do you play for them? Do you play classical music for them? For those of you who are parents, like any approaches that you've had that you want to share?
I'm asking my 6-year-old if he wants to share. He's hiding in the background. My 9-year-old daughter has been playing piano for I want to say 4 years now, and she's actually she was doing a 100-day practice challenge, and she's on day 160 something now.
All right.
Working up to 200 now to get her second prize. She's choosing her prizes for each one, and I've tried teaching her violin a little bit, but that didn't go well, because I'm her mom and I just expect her to already know how to play.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also, I'm also a singer, which I don't tell a lot of people because I don't, sing a lot. But Franklin knows. I've sang at a wedding before even. But she started singing too. So now she's singing opera arias, and my mom is teaching her over Zoom too. So.
Wow, beautiful. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, we've been listening to all kinds of music, not leaving anything out really. Also celebrating an anniversary, our first year anniversary being married. So we've been listening to a lot of old love songs, lots of good stuff. So anything is good. Classical. My wife also plays the piano, so we've been exposing her to the bass. She plays bassoon, piano, anything we can. Hopefully she'll be accustomed to everything and not be fussy if we have to practice a lot, but that's the plan at least.
Here's a cool question from Suzanne Roberts. How many of our musicians play multiple instruments? Confess, I mean, we heard Maria sings. I know Franklin has a few up his sleeve. What about the rest of you guys? What any other secret musical passions?
Not anymore. I took 8 years of piano growing up, but that was that. So
I play piano, and I'm actually also a singer. So Maria, this is fascinating. I come from classical trained parents, both with the Milwaukee Symphony, and my mom is a huge opera buff. And one of our favorite things that we used to do, this is going to show how old I am, but before stereo, we used to put the Met, the productions live from the Met on the TV, and then we turn it on the radio. So it was like our version of stereo. Wow. And she used to pop the special popcorn, and she's very dramatic. I'm like ridiculously dramatic. And so she would, say exactly what was going on when, and it was so engaging. As a child, it just created this not severe, but incredible love for opera that it just won't leave me. And so my daughter's similar. I kind of do the same thing. I can't turn it off. I think one of my favorite things is to play Mahler 2 and get to the end. And let's get to the end, and and blast it in the. Oh, it's life-changing. So I'm sorry, that was a little.
This was mentioned last week as well, but I think every episode we have of ASO at Home, we will recommend Mahler 2 for listening. So listeners, if you haven't listened to it last week, please, I'll just keep on bothering you until the end of the season. So Mahler 2, by 90 minutes. I hope you don't have upstairs neighbors blast the thing and just enjoy. Do not drive while listening to Mahler 2. You will get a ticket. Franklin, what instruments do you play in addition to cello?
Well, as a was that Andrews? As a string orchestra teacher, I had to learn all of the string instruments. So none of the other ones I would dare play in public. But I do know how to play violin and viola and bass well enough to teach kids how to do what they need to do. And play a lot of piano beforehand, but never really took piano lessons until I got to college. And I also sing. I'm not classically trained, but I sing in a couple of groups. I sing backup harmonies in Sirius B, and I sing lead vocals in my own band, Upland Drive. But mostly I just play cello in front of people. The others are kind of embarrassing to play in front of others.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard enough to play cello.
It's hard not to play cello. It's hard
enough.
every instrument is like, it's like a separate language. It's a different approach. You're all trying to communicate the same thing, but the way you do it is completely different. Even, I'm sure Jenny can talk about this, you know, violin, viola. Yes, same shape, not much difference in size, but completely different function. The strings are thicker, the response is different. You know, oftentimes violinists, you know, will say, you know, oh, you know, I've been playing viola for fun or whatever, and I ask, what is it like? It's like, well, everything just feels off. You know, like it's not so easy.
Yeah, I've never really played violin, but whenever I, you know, pretend or I pick it up, it always just feels so wrong, like I'm just gonna break it because it's so much closer. I won't.
That's how I feel with the cello. Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like watching our principal violist Kara play violin. She's really good at it, but it looks hilarious on her because it looks so tiny.
Because you're used to seeing her with the big viola.
Yeah, because so a normal size violin actually looks like a kid violin on her.
Yeah, totally.
I started teaching myself how to play guitar over quarantine, which is my dream for years, and I can play a Russian tune now, Gypsy. Not very well. It's called Gypsy, Циганочка.
Циганочка.
Dun, 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 dun,
Oh,
dun,
no, there's two guitars. There's two guitars.
Two guitars, yeah, they call it two guitars. In Russian, it's called Циганочка. Gypsy.
Awesome.
Matt, your instruments, confess.
I have been playing ukulele a little bit lately, just you know,
like
looking at some uke chords, playing some uke chords, yeah. But yes, but yeah, I also can sing in tune. I would be a great backup singer if I had oodles of time to sing in bands and things. I would love that, but I wouldn't be lead singer quality. But I could sing in tune.
Nice.
I think I have one little minor confession. I do play an instrument that is a little unorthodox, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I do play a little didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo? Really?
I was debating, should I say this?
Do you have it? Can you demonstrate?
It's downstairs. My husband actually is really good at it. He can circular breathe and everything. I can make some sound out of it.
Okay, how does it work? Like,
it is here.
A string session here with ASO Home.
I know. Yeah, why are we talking about this?
Why not? It's cool. Whoever sees the didgeridoo, it's rare. Okay.
It's a guttural sound from here, like this, and you produce
and that amplifies
sound.
it.
Yeah, and then there's a hitting of it, so you get this thing that, oh gosh. It's hard to play, but fun.
Good.
Jam session next time we have rehearsal.
Sure.
Love it. I was going to ask you guys this. You know, you mentioned you know we have various tenures across the orchestra. You've been in the orchestra different times. Walk our guests through what it's like taking an audition on your instrument. Who should we start with? Let's start with Matt. Let's go from the bottom up.
All right, that works. It can be pretty nerve-wracking. I think that's part of the experience is, can you handle the nerves? Can you perform under pressure? I know I do a lot of, when I'm preparing for an audition, I do a lot of rapid fire. I know I've worked on it, prepared it, and then I'll just randomly pick one and just play 4 of them in a row that are totally different styles, totally different tempos, just to challenge myself to see if I can jump into one and jump out of one and jump into one and try to mimic that experience.
We should tell our viewers, the process of auditioning for orchestra is, you know, we have X number of people apply. The orchestra books a day at the hall. The principals of the orchestra come and are seated behind a giant curtain. We cannot see, like I'm with the principals, we do not see anybody who's on stage. We have no idea. It's the fairest hiring practice in the world for anything. And a player will come on and they're asked to play excerpts. And excerpts are taken from the orchestral repertoire. So it's not that you're coming as a violinist and just playing a movement of a concerto or a solo Bach or something like this. You actually asked to play a short bit. It can be like 10, 15 seconds. It can be 30 seconds. And that's all you get. It's like your calling card of 30 seconds. Can you deliver at that very moment? That's what you're talking about, Matt. Like you're switching rapid fire back and forth because the committee, you know, there's a long list published, but the committee will pick whatever they feel they need at the moment. And generally the committee is picking contrasting repertoire. We're trying to see, like, can the person play fast? Can they play high? Can they play loud? Can they play off the string? Do they have kind of a musical personality? These are kind of things you look for in the audition. So the committee picks excerpts, you know, at the moment. The people are notified prior to coming on stage what they're going to play. So it's very difficult, as you expressed, to put yourself in the mindset, psychological mindset of what that's like when you're practicing at your house, right? Where you have just, oh, I'm just going to do this excerpt now and go on. Fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
I just
Right,
wanted to,
right.
you know, for people who are not musicians in the room, just to give kind of this expression.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. What's your least favorite excerpt?
Probably Marriage of Figaro.
Marriage of Figaro. It's the opening of the opera.
Very, very, very opening. You get no, I mean, it's just, you're cold. You got to start off there. But it's also very quick, and you have to be very precise with your left hand to get it to sound right. There's a lot of slurring. You're using the bow, doing one long up bow or one long down bow, and doing a lot of notes in between with the left hand. So you have to be really precise. If you're off by a little bit, it just kind of throws off the whole feel of it. But in some ways, it's more fun to practice or do the ones that are the most difficult, because then you're kind of bringing up the rear. I feel like as a section player, you're only as good as your weakest player. Similar to an audition, you're only as good as your weakest piece. So I sometimes work on that one too much, and I have to take a break because I know that I need to work on it more than others. So I try to even that out. My teacher would always tell me that in college, you know, the high notes are just ones you don't play that often. If you played them more, they wouldn't seem as hard. And I'm like, you're right, that's true. I mean, it's simple but logical.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, it's simple but logical. Especially as a bass player, trying to make it as simple as possible. I mean, as a section, we're more laid back, I think, than a lot of others. Why we get along with the low brass and all that, because we're just kind of more like laid back in general. So it's for us, I feel, especially for me, I feel like that's what I have to bring at the audition is some, you know, fire and musicality. I feel that's when I'm coming into an audition, at least the most recent ones, I feel like that's my A thing. So I know I can play the rhythms, the notes. It's more about what am I trying to say, and I want the committee members to remember me, you know, remember what I sounded like and say, well, you know what, that one was pretty good. That's at least my hope. That's my goal.
Franklin, do you have a crazy audition story, something unusual and weird that happened when auditioning?
A crazy audition story. I blank out during most of my auditions. I've auditioned for the
blank out.
I'd like blank out. Like I don't remember a lot of what happens. But
to approach it.
Yeah. I've auditioned for the Asheville Symphony probably 6 times now, for different various positions. You know, I auditioned to get in, and then probably 2 or 3 times for associate principal, and then 2 or 3 times for principal. And I think probably I guess it's always the slip-ups that are weird. You know, trying to collect yourself after you've made a mistake is really kind of a trip, you know, because there's the, you know, just sort of figure out where to, you know, do you stop and go back and play the section again, or do you just pick up right there and keep going? That's the easy part. The hard part is collecting yourself mentally and emotionally and make sure that you're still on your game moving forward, because I mean, a lot of times that triggers this sort of, sort of it's like psychological storm in your brain, and you get really foggy.
I love that you brought this up. It's as we talked with Matt, it's like you're trying to present yourself as perfectly as possible, but we're all human.
Right.
And so inevitably a slip up will happen. And slip up might be even something that the audition committee, after being in the room for 4 hours, may not even care about at the moment. By the time you who have done it perfectly in practice rooms, who knows how many times, it happens. And then can you move on and get past that? Jenny is nodding her head. Have you had some experiences?
Yes. You said a crazy experience, and I will never forget my crazy experience.
You got a good one?
Oh yeah, I got a good one.
Okay.
Yeah. My very first audition, very first, I was still in college, and it was for the Atlanta Symphony. It was a small orchestra, and and I went in there, and I was really prepared. I mean, I was so confident, and you walk in the red carpet, so they can't hear your feet, if you're a male or female. So I walk down this long carpet, and there's the stand, and I get ready, and I'm going to play my Bartok concerto. Ooh, it's, and I was feeling a little anxious, but I didn't realize how anxious I really was. And I picked, my instrument up, and I'm going to, and I start to play, and I'm feeling a shake, kind of like in my legs a little bit. I'm nervous, I think, and it starts to get a little worse. It's shaking, and as I'm trying to play, I'm shaking more and more, and finally, I had no choice. I had to stop because I was shaking so much, and the proctor who was sitting there, says to me, would you like to try that again? And I said no, and I laughed.
Oh no!
That was it. I knew it was it. But right after that, it's a big thing. Nerves are a thing. That's just a matter of the way it is. But I did go to the New World Symphony, which is like a training ground after college. And we had some incredible workshops where we talked about how to deal with that, how to center yourself, how to try to block those things, Franklin, that you're talking. It's just how to try to just stay focused. And so there you go, and the rest is history.
I know I think in future sessions when we come back, I'd love to talk to our audience about what it's like to be on the other side of the curtain, because there's also some pretty good stories that happen.
I want to know.
You want to know? I'll share one. And it's not from National Symphony. This is actually from early on in my career. My first job out of school was a director of orchestras at Northern Arizona University, and it was audition for all the wind and brass players at the university. So, like endless days of listening, and a lot of them are not majors, and are not that great, and you're just kind of you're fatigued and going. And so in the horn edition, there was a kid who played. It was supposed to be Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, which is very, very, very loud and open. Just pa pa da da pa pa. That's you just have to play loud and with great focus sound. And so it's myself, the band director, and the principal horn behind the screen. And this kid comes in and he plays one excerpt. So the teacher already knows who it is, and it's one of the weaker players in the studio. So we're like, oh my God, we have to listen to this. Everybody's a little fatigued. And he gets to the Tchaikovsky 4. And in emptying his water out of his horn, he doesn't put the slide all the way back in. And so he blows as hard as possible. And it's like something like, pa! It was just like you're expecting Jack 4 and you hear this duck sound. All three of us are fighting as strong as we can not to laugh. And you're squeezing your abs, you're like holding your mouth. And all three of us, without exception, we put our heads down on the table. And then you're trying to hold it. Then he continues to play the excerpt, he puts it back in, and it's horrible, and every mistake he makes, you want to laugh more. And then the band director, all he does is this, but you hear it. He goes, you just hear him breathing through the nose. And I mean, it was
Oh.
you know, definitely behind the scenes audition experience. So, I did want to come back. We have a few minutes left. I asked this last week from our principals. What are some pieces you guys love and you have not gotten a chance to play at the Nashville Symphony and would love to see in future seasons? I'm going to start with Dorothy. We haven't heard from Dorothy in a while. And why?
Playing with the symphony so long, I've probably played a lot of pieces twice, but I missed playing Brahms 1 this spring.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite symphonies, and just especially the melody of the last movement is just.
We'll come back to it. We'll bring it back.
juicy.
We'll bring it back.
Yes. So.
Yeah, Jason Posnock, our concertmaster, shared exactly the same sentiment.
Well, that's a great first concertmaster solo in there too. So.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Let's see. Matt, what about you?
I don't know if y'all played La Mer recently, but I know that's classically more of a wind, symphony, like that. But I just really love the tone colors, and I think it would be nice to blend,
Nice.
play that one.
That's
I've done that one only a couple of times, but yeah, it's a challenging one. Yeah.
I'm looking at the first violinist for the second movement.
Yeah. But,
Maria, retort. What is your choice?
Me?
Yeah. What would you
Oh,
like?
well, I think everybody knows Shostakovich Leningrad Symphony.
Oh, yes.
And why? Because I'm from St. Petersburg, formerly Leningrad, and that just like hits me like right here every time. I can't, like every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh my God, how have I never played this piece before?
I should say for our listeners, the Debussy La Mer, the Sea, it's kind of a revolutionary work by Debussy. It's his largest orchestral work, or let's say most played orchestral work. And a great challenge for woodwinds that are painting, the element of the sea. Beautiful solos. There's a beautiful writing for the cello. So I definitely one of the highlights of any orchestra season. Shostakovich 7, the Leningrad Symphony, was written in Leningrad while it was under siege, the longest siege in all of World War II, a horrible time in that city. And what people had to do to survive is absolutely harrowing. There's a great book, is it Shostakovich, A City of the Dead? It came out in the last 5 or 10 years. Does that sound right? Am I remembering correctly the title? Yeah. Read it. It's a wonderful way. Sorry?
Symphony for the City of the Dead.
Symphony for the City of the Dead. It's a wonderful book that describes Shostakovich's life, his background, and if you want to discover more about his music and an incredible personality, he really was like a Mozart of the 20th century. I highly recommend to read it.
And you are gonna cry if you read it.
Yes, it's
Prepare
very moving.
some tissue. I was listening to it on audiobook and I was driving and I had to actually pull over because I couldn't see the road.
Yeah.
I was like, just
it's an incredible kind of life writes dramas life story for Shostakovich. Franklin, what about you? What's that work you're missing?
That it's a tough one. I think one that I've never done with Asheville is we've done some Mahler, but the one with the hammer.
Mahler 6.
Yeah, I think so.
The 6th Symphony.
That's one that
there's a hammer.
I could see that happening, and also like the smaller ones like Bach orchestral suites and things like that. I definitely.
Well, keep your eyes peeled. If we don't get rid of Corona soon, I think smaller repertoire is going to be the way we're going to be rolling for a while. Mahler 6 for our audience is
that Mahler thing.
Yeah.
We played it in Greenville. Matt, did you play then?
Yes.
I sat in the back of second violins next to the giant wooden red box that they built for this. And
Yes.
the girl came out and just like picked up this enormous hammer. And it was like right here. It was awesome.
It was loud across the stage. It was
is
really
actually
loud.
the most dramatic thing you can see in an orchestral hall is Mahler 6, because the hammer strokes represent strikes of fate to Mahler. So he was going through a very difficult time in his life, and this movement at the end, the last movement of the symphony has depending which edition you do, 2 or 3 strikes. And so somebody in the percussion, I don't know how they pick lots, because it's like the most funding thing you can possibly do. You know, it's like
Whoever's principal.
20/20 activity is play hammer and Mahler 6, because you know there's some box constructed on stage. There's a giant mallet, and you get to swing this thing and hit it as hard as you can 2 or 3 times. I mean, what do you want with that? Right.
Yeah, my dad was watching that from the audience, and he was like, "I think I regret not becoming a percussionist." You know,
Anyway,
like, that was like too much fun.
We'll wrap up.
There are a couple of
Favorite piece?
Sorry, what did you say?
A favorite piece that you'd like?
Oh, me. Oh, well, again, I'm not totally sure what all has been played, but Prokofiev 5, has that been played here?
That was my audition concert.
Oh,
Good choice.
really? Well,
It's fun.
it was I see.
Fun. It was
Well,
a lot of fun. Yeah.
I like that because at the very end, there's a viola solo, of course.
Yes.
Nobody ever hears, but it's one of the most difficult things.
Yes.
This thing.
It sounds like you need a machine to put on your arm to play it.
And violas sit back, you know, we sit back and here it comes, you know.
Yeah.
So fun.
It's like a roller coaster.
It is. Goodness, you guys are so much fun. This was like the quickest hour of my week. Thank you so much for joining. I'm gonna go through the questions here and briefly answer, so I'm not leaving anything out. Sorry. We answered that one. We answered that one. What is it like being an Asheville Symphony conductor? That'll be a future episode. I think we're doing that sometime at the end of October. So I'll skip that one for now. Are there physical therapy specialists for musicians in town that you guys know of? There's Matt, of course.
Yes.
Well,
He's in Duncan.
well,
We
in Greenville, actually,
Stanford-
right?
Yep. So there are specialists. I mean,
Stanford is an amazing masseuse.
okay.
There's Alexander Technique in Asheville too, so that's super exciting.
Yeah, Alexander Technique is a very useful tool musicians use to prevent injury. I've had like 2 sessions that transformed me. It's absolutely incredible. Do
Chiropractors
musicians
help a
have
lot.
modern or old string instruments and bows? I think we have a mix in the orchestra. There is nowadays the new makers are making incredible instruments for strings. They're unbelievable. Of course, the old instruments, you know, you can go back to the 18th and 17th century instruments. They're incredibly expensive. And one of the interesting things, of course, with the famous violins of Stradivarius is that their cost has increased so much that it's becoming prohibitive for musicians to use them because they cannot afford the insurance on the instrument. Not the instrument itself. There's no way to afford for an orchestra musician to afford $5-10 million violin, but the actual insurance, the annual insurance that's required to keep them is just getting out of hand. Have any of you ever had a string break, and how do you handle it? We all have. I'm sure it's a common occurrence. Hopefully it doesn't happen in a concert. There's always famous tales of concertmasters who are about to have a solo and their string breaks, and then they pass the violin back. Has that ever happened to you, Maria? I'll check.
I've had actually not all 4. My E string was in tune, but all 3 lower strings go out of tune, like it just unwind.
Wow.
It was like a finale of because it gets really hot on stage, and it's like something. My old violin was just like boom, 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 and as I'm playing, I understand that I'm sounding like. I'm like, okay, what do I do? I can't just stop in tune. This is like last page. I can't remember what it was, but there's like a lot of fast notes and we're playing. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to air bow. So I just put my fingers where they go and I just kept like moving my bow in the air. Cause I mean,
you got to keep the illusion up.
Yeah. Yep. After that, I got perfection pegs, which have gears inside. So that.
No slippage. We didn't get into all the nitty-gritty tricks of being a string player. One of my favorite was, using chalk from class to keep pegs from slipping, for example, back in the day.
Pencil.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the crazy. I'll end with this question. We'll just end with one last question before we go, and that is, share a ridiculous string maintenance playing tip, something absolutely ridiculous. Mine will be that my teacher told me that the best way to get rosin, the white stuff that's used on the bow, off the instrument was lighter fluid. And it does work. It does not harm the varnish, but don't be near a heat source.
Oh my God. Don't play too fast, right?
Don't play too flat. Don't you end up like Michael Jackson. Any other craziness?
Well, for those people that might wonder what these beautiful marks are here, we call them hickeys. And they are a string thing, and they actually are related to our instrument, to our chin rest, and so we usually clean off the chin rest to make these. But honestly, my COVID hickey is really going away. It's not pretty. Yeah.
You gotta get back to action quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Crazy tricks?
I don't know if it's crazy, but I use steel wool to get excess rosin off my strings. I think that's kind of a maybe not a standard thing, but steel wool is great.
Me too.
It's a lot faster than other things.
You as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't use that on violin strings. You'll have to replace them after like a week.
No.
Yeah.
I was thinking that when you were saying the strings breaking, it's like I've seen like 2 bass strings break ever. One was in a case and it popped through a soft case. It was how strong the string was. So you could imagine it trying to come through.
Yeah, that's a
finger.
The hazards of the job.
Bass strings sound like a cannon when they break.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Because they'll usually hit the top of the instrument, and it is like a pow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you ever wanted to know and more about the strings. Well, again, thank you all today for joining. Thank you to our guests for joining. I really appreciate your time and spending your hour here on Tuesday evening with the Asheville Symphony. We'll have more of these. Keep an eye out on your email for links. And yeah, it's been great to visit with the strings. I can't wait that we make music again together. I miss all of you so much. I miss making music together, but as other crises in the world have shown us, this will pass and we will come back. Because, to quote, I think it was maybe Nietzsche, life without music is a mistake. Thank you, everybody. Love to all of you. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch next time.
Thank you, Darko.
Thank you.
Darko.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.